The CMO Confidential podcast is a proud member of the I Hear Everything podcast network. Looking to launch or scale your podcast? I Hear Everything delivers podcast production, growth, and monetization solutions that transform your words into profit. Ready to give your brand a voice? Then visit iheareverything.com.
Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Typeface has completely changed the process of large campaign executions. Everyone knows AI can help with images and headlines, but the real impact is making the leap from a creative brief to a live, multi-channel, large campaign at speed. Typeface just announced its marketing orchestration engine, the first platform built to automate campaign workflows. You can roll out campaigns that used to take months in just a few hours. Typeface uses agentic AI to orchestrate the entire process, taking one campaign and instantly orchestrating it into thousands of personalized experiences across ads, email, and video. Major brands like ASICS and Post Holdings are already transforming their marketing with Typeface. See how to move from brief to personalized campaigns in hours, not months, at typeface.ai/CMO. Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Mike Kaput. Today's topic: structuring your company for AI, an update from the front lines. Now, Mike is the Chief Content Officer for the Marketing AI Institute and host of the Artificial Intelligence Show, a podcast that has been running since 2021. The Marketing AI Institute, where he works, was founded 10 years ago and hosts the largest AI event for marketing conference in the U.S. right here in Cleveland, Ohio. So Mike, if anybody, has one of the very front row seats for the AI revolution, which he has occupied since well before the introduction of ChatGPT. His company recently completed a very large study on AI usage, and he's here to share the results. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, well, I think this is really a fun topic. And you surveyed more than 2,000 companies on how AI is actually being used. Tell us, why did you even undertake this study and how you went about selecting the companies?
Yeah, of course. So for the last 5 years at Marketing AI Institute, we have run this thing called the State of Marketing AI Report. And that's basically year-on-year research where we've surveyed hundreds and then eventually a couple thousand marketing leaders and business leaders, not just marketing, but mostly marketing for that particular study. And we collected all this benchmark data over the years because for a long time our work was solely for marketing. Marketing AI Institute, pretty self-explanatory, but in the last couple of years, we've actually expanded quite a bit. We have a parent company now called SmarterX that our CEO and founder, Paul Raitzer, started. So we're one of the brands under SmarterX. SmarterX is not just for marketers. Marketing is a huge part of what we do, but it's about helping businesses of all stripes, all functions, all departments adopt AI responsibly, because we started out as marketers. We have deep marketing backgrounds, but we found that everything we were teaching and learning and sharing in marketing was also highly, highly relevant to non-marketing functions. So long story short, we did all this.
You got your talking points in there, Mike. That was as good as anybody's ever.
Oh my gosh.
On getting the talking points in the first, I mean, that is an A+.
Wow. That makes me feel good about the rest of this. So, just remember that when I say something dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have been collecting this marketing data for years on AI adoption, education, barriers. And because of the expanded mission of SmarterX, we decided this year, okay, we're doing the State of AI for Business report. So we've kind of taken our existing audience, our new audience, adapted the questions from the last several years, added some new ones, and basically said, okay, let's interview as many company or survey rather as many companies as possible. Some in marketing, some not. We actually only have about a third of it's marketing this year in terms of job title, function, et cetera. But we've got now 2,000 plus respondents at different companies across finance, HR, legal, operations, et cetera, C-suite, all companies, all industries, a lot of different sizes. Like, we're still kind of parsing the data right now. It's still we just finished up. But yeah, really good representation. We basically chose the companies by surveying everyone we could in our existing audience. Our database has almost 150,000 people across every possible function. We have thousands of learners in our AI Academy, many of whom are not marketers. So it really came from kind of our existing channels and audience, and we were just looking for the widest cross-section possible.
So if I parse it out, what I say is, all right, these guys had a really broad field and they surveyed the whole field.
Yes, that's exactly it.
And so what we're getting here is input from what you guys, it was the broadest field you could reach, which is one of the broader fields most people probably could reach.
Yeah.
So give us the headline conclusion of what this field says.
Yeah, a couple big things to note here. We can unpack whatever we want to unpack, but really two big things kind of jumped out to me from the preliminary data that we're kind of analyzing at the moment. So first is there's quite a bit of disconnect between individuals and organizations when it comes to AI adoption, integration, and where everyone's at. So individuals are actually kind of outpacing organizations. So when we ask people, how would you define your personal state of AI adoption? There's a number of options, two of which are really important in terms of later phase stages, which would be integration and transformation. 53% of people said they're in those later stages. Whereas when we talk to organizations, when we asked it at the organization level, hey, are you understanding, piloting, or scaling AI? Only 25% of organizations are at the scaling stage at the moment. And on top of all this,
And when you say scaling, what does scaling actually mean? I'm rolling it out to everybody, or I'm
yeah.
just
Yeah, scaling means you've gone beyond initial pilots. You've used AI before in the piloting phase, perhaps done it for a number of things, but scaling is not only is it rolling out to everyone, you are expanding your use of it across every possible facet of the company. Obviously, that encompasses quite a wide array of companies, but that's the most mature stage, we would say, at this
And
stage.
that means I've rolled this out and it's in the toolbox, and I kind of expect everyone to open that toolbox.
100%. Yeah, yeah. So you'd be the most mature organizations, we would say, would be in that scaling phase. And so, only about a fourth, which is still good. That's better than before, but only about a fourth are at the furthest or as far along as they could be, whereas almost half of individuals are quickly moving in that direction. So, again, there's a lot of nuance to the data, but individuals are essentially outpacing their organization.
So if only 25% are scaling, what are the other 75% doing?
They're either doing not enough or they're in the piloting phase. So a big trend is we've seen a lot of people, most actually, so about 46 to 47% of all the people surveyed are in the piloting phase. So they've started using AI for select use cases. They may be using one or more tools, but it is not widespread across the company. And we see this is really common. I don't want to say kind of to our team, I told you so, but I felt like I was pretty confident this would be the data because this is a challenge everyone has.
And wait, one of the things about pilot is I can have a real pilot or I can have a pilot that gets the board and everybody else off my back. How many, and I don't know if you can answer this from the survey, but when you look at the pilots, are the pilots real? And if the pilot goes bad, do companies actually not scale?
Yeah, so I think that we probably don't have any conclusive data on what is real or not in terms of this. I think the vast majority of people that answer that they are piloting, I would say they believe they're real. So I'm sure there's some diversity there, but I think they believe it at least. I would say that when we encounter organizations piloting, the vast majority are doing some real things with it. But in terms of how far and how fast that's moving, sometimes that could be a little overstated.
And are there any companies that are still just hanging back, waiting?
Yeah, I think you'd be kind of surprised. We were actually surprised. So in years of doing this, pretty recently, I think we've come to the conclusion that a lot of places are a lot further uh, earlier in their journey than I would have anticipated, just because there's so many actual challenges to figure out, especially bigger enterprises. There's a lot of legal, a lot of IT, a lot of logistical things to figure out that people are not moving very fast to figure out. So plenty of widespread adoption. The hype is real. Like this is happening, but the gap between people doing stuff and not doing stuff, I don't think has ever been bigger.
Well, and some of the hype about we're an AI first company or we are on the cutting edge, you're now seeing huge amounts of advertising saying, we're all over it.
Yep.
Is that a lot of the advertising is ahead of the actual implementation, or is that in line?
Yeah, I think that there is a tendency to overstate things sometimes. I
Those
do think
marketers.
I know we're the worst sometimes.
God, I hate those guys.
Yeah, I think there's some hype going on. Again, that there is real technology, real use cases, and real results behind the hype, 110%. But I think a lot of people are talking a big game too at the moment.
Hey, before we go on, I should have asked this in the beginning. What actually is the chief content officer do at the Marketing AI Institute? Like, that's
That
such a big title, chief content officer.
That is an excellent question. So we kind of think of the business, both Marketing AI Institute and SmarterX as a whole. It's basically an education event and media company. So, we've got online education, in-person virtual events, and there's a media engine that powers all of it. We've always been a content shop. We have a content engine where we teach, publish, research, publish content weekly through the podcast, newsletters, written content. So basically, my job is I own that content engine and make sure that we're publishing across all the right channels, all the right stuff our audience needs to know if they want to accelerate their AI literacy.
We are taking a short break from this show for a word from our sponsor, Typeface.
To orchestrate workflows across channels, meet Arc Agents, your AI teammates handling complexity so you can focus on what matters. All within a reimagined workspace where you and AI create as one. Spaces works the way you do. Create anything, from documents to videos to entire campaigns, at scale. Our agents help you craft campaign storyboards, powered by your Brand Hub, giving you the perfect starting point. Transform one asset into countless variations for every audience and market. Join industry leaders already reimagining their content lifecycle with Typeface. Welcome to marketing's next chapter, where every story finds its voice.
Now, back to our discussion.
Okay, that was a sidebar that I took us down. So I'm going to get us back on the regular show. I want to go back to this say-do gap where we just talked about the advertising, where what I say is maybe not what I do. How can you give us some examples of actually say-do working in the marketplace? And then how do you even know as a leader if you have a good say-do gap? I'm saying I'm AI, I'm telling the board I'm doing AI. I got all these pilots running, but am I really doing AI, or am I just saying I'm doing it and not really embedding it into the infrastructure of the company?
Yeah, I think there can be a big gap there. And what we see sometimes happen is that gap first starts with what you just mentioned, which is what you're telling the board, your boss, all this great stuff we're doing with AI. And it's true. I don't think people are lying about it. They're starting to run those kinds of experiments and pilots. But when you actually sit down and say, okay, well, what's happening each week in and out? There's even wider gaps between what is being said and what is being done. And I think a lot of that happens because the execution is really, really hard. It's very hard sometimes to put pieces in place to actually monitor AI usage. A big other piece that I'll probably talk about again is number 2, AI literacy is very often ignored by companies or underinvested in. So we're shotgunning tools at people and saying, hey, we bought all these licenses, go use this stuff. And your average knowledge worker might not fully understand what AI even is, what it's capable of, and where the technology is going. And so you say, like, oh, we did all this stuff, we bought all this stuff, we have a plan, and then it's kind of crickets sometimes in organizations.
Hey, and how do I measure true adoption and true literacy from a real, like, okay, I really want this to work? How do I actually measure that, particularly if I'm a big, humongous company and I don't really, I know all my workers can't absorb this all at once, even as much as I want them to. How do I measure all this stuff?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing challenge, and there's no perfect answer just yet. But I would say we see the most successful companies doing a few things, which is one, sounds very simple, but at a very baseline level, you need to be looking at whatever analytics or metrics are available in the AI tools you've bought. You can see usage. You can typically see who's using what and how often it's being used. That's a part that people really need to pay attention to, because if people are not using the tools, the rest of this doesn't really matter. So if they're not using the tools, okay, why is that? Now, it may be that education or literacy problem. And that's kind of one of the things we built our company to do, is basically not only provide the education platform that companies don't have and need for AI literacy, but also you have increasingly, when everything's in one platform, you have ways to actually track over time how much better people are getting with AI, how much educational content they're both consuming and using. So I think being able to also track that piece of it, the literacy piece, would be really smart and wise for companies to start doing.
And how do if I read all this hype, and I will say I think I'm a heavy AI user.
Yeah.
I use it, I teach college, I use it there, I use it for the show, I use it a lot. But then I always think I'm super behind. How do I know if I am a laggard or not as a person, individual, and then as a company? I mean, really know.
Yeah, so as
Without hiring you guys. So, because I know you're going to get the talking points in, so I'll just get them in for you.
I
But
love
if I
it.
want to do a self-assessment, how do I do it?
At the individual level, I think it'd be wise to consider just how often you are even using tools to begin with. Are you a daily, weekly, monthly user? Like, if you're not using AI every day for at least something, I would say you might want to consider further use cases for AI. I think seeing what you're using it for, is the number of use cases you are leveraging AI for going up or down? Pretty simple question, or staying the same rather. You probably want that number to be going up, because that's a plateau you can really hit where you get geeked about a few different use cases, use AI for them, you see some results, but you're not continually expanding and reinventing your workflows using the tools. Now, companies is a little bit of a bigger challenge, but I would say there's some kind of obvious boxes to check to understand if you are a laggard, right? So like, if you don't have any really formal useful AI policies, that's probably an issue. If you do not have at least an approved tool, and even if it's not your ideal tool, something that has already been approved that people can use and are taught how to use, if you don't have that, you're probably lagging behind. If you are finding yourself stuck in that phase where only one department owns this, or only a couple are experimenting with it, I don't think you're that far behind, but you might be lagging a bit. That's a huge issue. Like 40+% of people said that silos and like inconsistent deployment across their work.
40%.
Yeah, that was a huge issue.
So that is almost half of the companies are not expanding this past the silo.
And to toot the horn of our audience, like, that's probably low, because we probably, hopefully, if we've done our job, have a little bit more of a forward thinking, or at least further advanced audience than your average company. I could probably guarantee that's at least over 50% at your average firm, if not much higher.
Hey, so Mike, one of the things a bunch of our guests have said before is you should have more than one tool in play.
Yeah.
I'm certain you probably believe that, but how many tools should you have in play? There's like, you could have at least five of the big guys in right now.
I always say the right answer is whatever you can get approved, especially like working with bigger enterprises. So
That's like that all you would eat can eat buffet. The right answer is how much can you eat?
Honestly, I would agree with that. I would say you can never have enough redundancy, but guess what? Even if your organization's a little more conservative, you only get one tool approved, that's better than zero. But I would say you need at least two or three, as I would argue, as your like daily drivers. Like look at what's happened in the news recently. We just saw Anthropic specifically getting a huge fight that's still ongoing with the US government. Like
Right.
they have huge usage problems due to this now where they're trying to buy more compute. You and I were talking before we started recording about all the need for all these data centers and compute, and there's outages and usage problems. And like, I don't know about you, but I'm at the point now where if my AI tool of choice goes down in a workday, it's like if the internet's going down.
Yeah.
So we're not getting a huge amount done. So I'd say redundancy is important. At least two tools, probably three would be kind of my sweet spot personally.
Okay. I have to ask, if I am trying to catch up, say I'm in the middle of the pack or I'm in that bottom of the set,
Yeah.
what are the biggest mistakes companies make when they try and catch up? Because, I haven't talked to anybody, maybe one or two people that think they are truly on the front end of this.
Yeah.
You probably talk to a bunch more people, maybe on the a close front end, but almost everybody feels it's changing so fast, it's hard to keep up. If I want to catch up, I know I'm behind. I acknowledge I'm behind as a company. What is the biggest mistake I can make here? We've talked about what you should do right, but I'm sure you see a bunch of people step in it when they do this. Tell
Yeah,
us the
yeah.
errors.
If I really had to choose, I would say some version of the following mistake, which is okay, let's say you've kind of had your come to Jesus moment over here and you say, okay, I know I'm behind, AI is super important, we're all in, great. That's amazing, but it's very tempting for companies to then say, okay, we're going to get all the tools, we're going to get all the latest technology, we're going to give it to people, and then we're going to go and we're going to not only catch up, but get ahead. That's an amazing sentiment. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be on the bleeding edge like that. But if you think you're just going to hand people tools, and especially as we're getting into AI agents, which we could talk about, like
Oh, we are going to
as
talk about that. Yeah.
as you hand people these tools that not only they might not understand the full power of, but also are increasingly autonomous, it can lead to a huge amount of problems. You cannot just turn this stuff on and expect your team to get it. We this year in the data, for instance, lack of training and education is still the number one barrier that people say when it comes to adopting AI effectively in their organization. It's not about access to tools. A lot of them don't really have issues anymore justifying getting AI tools in 2026, which is a great thing. We've asked a question around what is your top barrier to AI adoption. It's been training and education for 6 straight years.
Hey, Mike, and if I don't want to hire a firm like you, if I want to say I have to do my training and education, or I'm a small company,
Yeah.
is there something I should get? Because there's all these tools I can choose from. Is there a standard training anywhere?
Not really standard training. We often point people, we see a lot of education solutions as super complementary to what we do, but there's plenty of good free training through Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. Honestly, I think one thing people don't do enough is if you don't have a budget or you want to get more experience and catch up and find decent training, go ask AI. Not for training to take, have it teach you. I mean, half the time when I need to figure something out, I ask Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, hey, teach me this concept. What is this about? How do I start implementing it in a real way in my business or in my work or my life? So that's a really valuable outlet. I would say though that's the issue right now. Kind of one thing we've tried to help solve is like there is no centralized, there's no
Right.
one-stop shop for this stuff. I mean, our solution is beginning to become that, but and there's plenty of others like it, but yeah, there's no one single authority where you say you do that, you'll be up to speed totally.
And then let's talk about the advanced edge, where I am now have a bunch of AI agents maybe reporting
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
or working for me that I have created. Um, Tell me, what are the do's and don'ts, or the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Shame, in managing agentic agents that you have created?
Yeah, so it's still very, very early on a lot of this stuff. So we're still even kind of feeling our way around it. But I think big issues you want to be considerate of is one, what does your agent have access to? Because a lot of people don't always very carefully look at what permissions they give agents for different folders, file systems, accounts. That
So
alone is a
for
huge
example, if I
issue.
create the Mike Kaput agent for all my stuff, and I don't actually box it in right, it
Correct.
actually is all over everything I have.
It can be depending on the tool. Yeah, there's been people that for instance, OpenClaw is a big buzzworthy open source agent at the moment. You'll hear these horror stories of people giving the agent access to their bank accounts, their password. Not a good idea to begin with. So no surprise that things go wrong. But yes, agents will try to go do things for you by figuring out the steps to do those things. There's a lot of unintended consequences. It may think that the best way to fix your code base is to delete it, because if you delete the code base, there's no problems, right? I mean, it's not going to always be that blatant, but there's all this unintended stuff where agents could go wrong really, really quick.
Or you come back and your agent has sold your house on Moltbot to another agent.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So any tips for doing this right? You have these agents. If you have any examples of how to do this right, say you're right on the edge and you say, all right, we're going to make the next jump. We're going to do agents.
Yeah.
And how do you integrate them with people correctly and manage them correctly? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's such a bleeding edge area. I think everyone's still trying to figure that out. But for me, it always comes down to some combination of like fully understanding your actual workflow and also what is the job to actually be done. There's too many people out there who either are saying, well, I'll have people come up to me and say, well, we want to do agents. How do we do agents? Let's go do it. And I'll be like, well, how do you do the work today? You're going to still have to train an agent just like a person to go do the work. So if you don't have that documented somewhere, or you don't have that as a process or a system already, that's probably the unsexy first step here. Is like, before you run, you got to walk a little bit when it comes to that. So actually documenting and understanding and mapping your work is really going to benefit you when it comes time for agents, and will just make any agent work better. So if you're not getting value out of them, maybe give it some clearer instructions about what you want to do. And then when it comes to incorporating people there, I think a lot of people start to see, mistakenly so, see agents as a replacement for people. And I understand why you could logically get to that point, but I think really where we're going to go is people working in concert with agents and managing them and perhaps orchestrating them. Still so early on. There's like very few companies actually doing that, I would argue.
Yeah.
But that's going to require a lot more communication and education for your staff, because I don't think there's that many people that are super competent or comfortable when it comes to saying, wait a second, I'm going to have to go work with this AI agent now and like talk to it. And, we're getting there, but it's still very early. So I think there's going to be a lot of basic change management that is not being done.
But if I hear you saying the job description matters, and there's already, you already have to watch out for the silos. The
Yes.
silos are just different. And you probably can't motivate the agent by asking it to try harder. You're going to explain how to do it.
Yes,
And have it all hands with your agent. Go, I just want you to try harder.
Yeah. As someone who has formed too personal of a relationship sometimes with AI in terms of like, hey, why aren't we doing this right? Like, that's probably going to be a thing. People are going to be getting real attached.
Hey, so before we get we're getting towards the end of the show, but any surprise in the research we haven't talked about yet that you think is a aha for our listeners?
I'll tell you, the surprise to me, it wasn't the biggest surprise, but it is actually worse than I thought. We always ask in one way or another about how are you optimistic or pessimistic about AI's impact on jobs? And the exact wording of the question is a little different, but basically we're trying to say, like, do you think AI is going to create more jobs over time or lead to job loss? Pessimism has been rising, and previous research was just marketers, so it's not exactly apples to apples, but it was the highest it's ever been by a dramatic amount. It's like 3/4 of people roughly think that AI is going to destroy more jobs than it creates.
Well, 75%.
In the next few years. So again, long term, we might be in a really good spot, but over the next 3 years, 3/4 of people think we're losing more jobs than we're going to create. And I think that sentiment has really, that pessimism has really increased over the last few years as you kind of see how capable these tools are getting and the headlines out there.
Yes, it's almost increasing in direct proportion to capability of
almost directly. Yeah.
Hey, before we get to our traditional last question, any prediction on any big things that will happen before the end of 2026?
I think you've got to probably hang your hat on the fact that we're going to have a lot more people using a lot more agents by the end of 2026, regardless of your skill level. I don't know if it'll be literally everywhere, but we're already seeing a huge uptick in adoption of agentic capabilities, even if you're not building your own. Something like Claude Code runs agents all the time. I think we're
Yeah.
going to end Claude Co-work for non-technical knowledge workers too. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. By the end of 2026, you're going to have people saying, oh, yeah, like I'm either expected to start learning about agents or I'm already actively using some.
Excellent. So that brings us, I want to make a joke about spacely sprockets, but no one would know what that is. Uh, this brings us to our traditional last question. It's two-parter. You can take one or both, but you must take at least one.
Wow.
Funniest story you can tell on the air, or practical advice we haven't discussed yet. You can take one or both of those, but you must take at least one.
Funniest story or practical advice? I'll probably just go with some practical advice. And my practical advice would be this. This will be pretty tactical, but I think it's probably really wise for people to start thinking about. You could probably do a whole podcast on this to begin with. But what I found is, and how my work has changed over the last 3 months, is it's a lot less about chatting with AI necessarily or dumping things into a chat window. And it's much more about building out documents, often markdown files. Claude would call these skills. There's different names for them depending on which tool you're using. I'm literally building out almost a second brain or a knowledge base that is perpetually referenced by tools like Claude Code or other agents. So I think I would really start to be thinking about, instead of just jumping into a chat or a GPT or something, which is amazing if you're doing that and you can use AI in whatever way makes the most sense for you, I'd start really thinking about, what does my personal second brain look like? And in terms of a build out, in terms of what I'm teaching AI to do, giving it skills that it can execute autonomously, that's the next frontier. And the sooner you start building that infrastructure out, the further ahead you'll be.
So this is essentially you're creating your own thought partner in your
Trying to,
kind
yeah.
of quasi image, but not exactly.
I'm attempting to, yeah. And I think it really is not even thought partner, but like, hey, digital version of Mike that does all the things Mike can do eventually. We're not there yet, though.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Build your own version of Mike. So, Mike, thanks for joining the show. And thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. If you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. New shows drop every Tuesday, and all of our more than 160 episodes are available on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, which include The Unit Economics of AI. Can LLM companies actually make money? It's a bird. It's a plane. Holy shit, it's AI, parts 1 and 2. Synthetic influencers, should brands do it themselves? And marketing at Meta, the view from the eye of the storm. Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential. Typeface is changing the way to think about brand marketing at scale. Their marketing orchestration engine is the first of its kind and built specifically for the enterprise. The orchestration engine uses shared brand intelligence, designed to turn brand guidelines into personalized voice, visuals, and messaging delivered in a way that fits the context of your audience. It's how brands like ASICS and Post Holdings scale what works without sacrificing quality. Start orchestrating your brand at typeface.ai/CMO.